So here we go. Yes, hello all you Ecofictologists watching. My name is Lovis, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very special guest to the channel. This is Sally Cole-Misch, the author of The Best Part of Us, which I reviewed last week. So thank you so much for being here, Sally.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So for the new viewers watching and anyone who missed the review last week, do you want to give us a short, preferably spoiler-free review of the book?
Yes, definitely spoiler-free. The Best Part of Us is the story of a family, and they have a island in northern Canada that they enjoy going to every year. It's their family place. They renew their relationship with each other and with nature every year when they're up there. It's a bond with nature, with family, with friends on the lake. It's a place where Beth, the protagonist, is particularly at home. And when she's an intrepid explorer, when she finds Ojibwe relics on the island, she is so excited to show this to her friends, some of which are Ojibwe down at the other end. But other people in the family panic and are afraid that then their rights to the island will be questioned. So I would say the rest of the story is the best of intentions from each of the family members turn into unintended and the worst of outcomes and unintended consequences. So it's a story where in the end, she has to be, as the youngest person in the family, she has to be the one to make the decision as to if and whether her family will have the opportunity to be back on the island many years later.
I hope you enjoyed the review I did last week. I hope I did the book justice. I had a really good time reading it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that wonderful review. And it was very thoughtful, especially with you being a marine biologist. You know, recognizing, I think you're the first person that's reviewed the book that actually recognized the point about Beth being a freshwater ecologist, that was still, even though her life had changed dramatically, that was still a part of her, who she saw herself and who she wanted to be.
On your website, you describe yourself as an author, writer, and environmental communicator. Could you tell us a little bit about what that means to you to be an environmental communicator?
Yeah, it's kind of a unique term, I understand, but so I originally started as a journalist. I originally started pretty much in the political field after college. That was my degree, was in journalism. And then I started all of a sudden getting assigned things about the environment and how people were being impacted, whether, things like Love Canal, or particularly back then, it was a lot about toxic chemicals. And I became so intrigued with it and so moved by all the different ways our actions were impacting the environment and ourselves. That's when I chose to go back to graduate school and get my degree in environmental education, which I thought was pretty essential. And plus, the graduate chairman was just this amazing guy, and also international water policy, because being in the Great Lakes, obviously, water is so important to us and so treasured. And so, whether it was in actual jobs such as the International Joint Commission, which looks at boundary waters issues, or my own business or other contracts, there are a lot of ways to communicate about the environment. And so to say that I'm an environmental writer, or it just is very limiting. So I was really trying to use a term that incorporates every aspect of how you can communicate about the environment. I certainly had from very young, had experiences that connected me with nature, but I really hadn't thought of it as an opportunity for a career. And I'm so thrilled that I was able to do that.
The Best Part of Us actually came out of a fiction writing course at university, correct?
Yes. So I, had been in the nonfiction journalism, environmental science world for virtually my whole career. And a friend of mine invited me to do a memoir class, which, it's obviously still nonfiction, but I listening to other people's stories, just started thinking about imagination and how do we reflect stories and our experiences. And so a friend of mine kind of challenged me to take this Stanford online writing master certificate program, which was amazing. It was 3 years. It was really intense. It was people from several different countries, and we all, of course, read and discussed each other's. Our professors were just phenomenal. And so I had a fairly complete first draft by the end of that. So the professors at Stanford really suggest to you, pick one thing that grounds the story that you know well, whether it's a character, it's the plot itself, or a setting. And so for me, because I knew from the very beginning, I wanted this book to try and connect people to nature, wanted to take the voices and the messages that I use in my own profession and try and turn it into fiction. I wanted to pick a setting that I knew really well. And this is one I know, even though I haven't been there in 20 years, this is a setting I can close my eyes and see every bit of it right now and smell it and hear it. So
it's just stayed with you.
Yeah. Yep.
And your switch from nonfiction and your environmental writing and your journalism to writing fiction, what do you think that fiction has that nonfiction doesn't have? What does it bring to the reader or to the audience that nonfiction maybe doesn't?
I think that what I'm finding is from the folks that are responding to me, and particularly old and new friends, is, as you said last week in your review, you know, you might have been upset if this area was damaged, trees burned, whatever. Now you would be devastated.
Yeah.
And that emotional connection, because I think if they be and so many people have said this to me in their responses, oh, this makes me remember the lake that my family went to when I was 10 and we did this and this and this. And so that is what's so valuable, right? Is that they are remembering that connection that they have with nature, and hopefully then take it from there. And that's usually what I try and ask them next is, so where do you have that connection with nature now?
That was the big motivation for the book, right?
Yes, because what we found was years ago, our messaging and environmental communications focused on all the horrible things we were doing to the earth. And you must change your ways. And how many of us really respond positively to those kind of messages? We just don't. So we thought, okay, let's take a step back. Let's really see how people will change. And as you said, the real thing is recognizing if we value something, we will automatically act to protect it. We will think twice about different things we're doing in our lives, whether it's protecting our children or our homes or our careers or our studies. We will do what we need to do every day to protect those things. So that was really important of trying to get that message across in this book, and trying to help people to see how interconnected we are with nature, and that it is a living, breathing thing around us, each thing having its own life, right? So when you start to look at it that way, then you start to have that kind of valuing system that allows you to step back and say, okay, maybe it's not here just for my purpose. It's here as an entity in itself, and worthy of respect and valuing and protecting. So that's kind of the role that nature plays just inherently in our daily lives. Was really important to me to try and get across in this. And when I looked also at Beth's personal life and her choices, I thought about that sometimes the only way to get to our future is to return to our past and make those difficult choices and take those chances. But at the same time, what's essential to you, if nature is essential to you, it can't be buried or lost. We will find a way to go out and be in nature and connect with it one way or another, even if we live in an urban area and we love listening to the morning doves, or we watch a beautiful sunset. There are ways to still connect with nature no matter where we are. So that was kind of the whole range of messages and themes that I was trying to get across in the story.
Were you aware of the term ecofiction before writing your book, or did you come across it when you were marketing the book, or when was it only recently that you heard about it?
I think mm, I've been a longtime fan of Barbara Kingsolver, and I think her books, all the way back to Prodigal Summer, they have a certain sense of ecofiction. Nature is always part of her stories in one way.
Sure.
So I've always been, whether it's her or Ann Patchett, or there are just so many beautiful writers that always incorporate fiction in there. So I think it's interesting how it's really come to the forefront now. And while, Amazon or whatever doesn't include it in their metadata or something, like I couldn't call this an ecofiction book, even though I wanted to.
Really?
No, they don't have that category, which was very frustrating.
That's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's getting there. I think particularly the success of Where the Crawdad Sings, I think really changed the corporate writing environment and publishing environment as far as seeing it as possibly a marketable type of writing that it hasn't in the past. But I think it is growing, and I think the stories that offer, there are people that are really into doomsday stories. And so there is that part of ecofiction that's really what they're focusing on, right? Is how will the world end for humans? And, while certainly some people like that, I think books that also offer hope and opportunity, and that's certainly what I chose, is to write about our connections with nature. I think that's the way we get to some solutions that really make a difference. So that's what I would choose to keep reading for ecofiction. And someone like a Barbara Kingsolver, that's certainly what she tries to do, even in her books where something's happening horribly, like losing monarchs for migration or that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's a really interesting conversation to have, dystopian or utopian, or I did a couple episodes on the other opias that are in between, and kind of there is it splits the crowd, doesn't it? Some people think that dystopian is the way to go because utopia is unrealistic, and some people love utopias and they think dystopias are too depressing and actually demotivating rather than motivating. So finding a balance in between, maybe reading a bit of both, or coming at it from a different way, like you have, kind of reminding people of their own value of nature, and not looking so much forward, but almost looking back into their own past.
Yeah, and how many of them are stories where you feel like you're reading the present or possibly the future, but at the same time, those are difficult stories to have positive endings. And to me, when I read one where suddenly, and this is probably more true for movies than they are some of the great ecofiction, is that then suddenly somehow some great technology comes out and we solve everything. And I don't, at the same time we're doing this, we don't want to cast false illusions that, this isn't going to be hard to solve the issues that we've created, because it is very hard, and we've got to get our act together. That's not something that anybody doesn't know, but it's a fiction, I think, has just an incredible role in helping people to see their world a certain way. And if we can use ecofiction to help educate, help people to connect emotionally with those issues, and to reflect on what actions they're taking to help be part of the solution rather than the problem. I mean, there's something that draws them to ecofiction, right? There's some interest there for them to read something like that. And I think a lot of it is environmental professionals tend to get so stuck in reading nonfiction all the time, or always reading about the environment and what are the latest issues and what are the possibilities for solving it. And so to draw someone to ecofiction is not always easy in our community, but I think it's so worthwhile to try and do it. I wouldn't say realistically, but ethically, I guess, and in a way that points us in some direction that actually can be accomplished.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think that's one of ecofiction's biggest strengths is that it kind of takes all of the same or similar messages that nonfiction is trying to send and packages it in something that is more easily digestible or absorbable. The struggles that we face, we do search for them in the media that we consume. So we do search for representation in fiction, and that. So I think that's something that ecofiction really kind of serves a really good purpose.
Yes, absolutely. And it's also, so many friends of mine have said, well, I didn't know you knew this much about birds or constellations or whales, or, the ecofiction is the same to me as any other novel. It's an opportunity to learn about different people and different experiences and different situations. And so if ecofiction can help people, I had to do a lot of research to understand different parts of the story that I wrote. So if through that process, our readers can understand more about what are the actual implications of not addressing different parts of climate change, or, toxic substances, or, just the whole range of things, rising water levels, particularly sea levels for all of you over in Scotland. And, it's just, there's so many opportunities here to really present it in ways that's interesting and enjoyable and emotionally satisfying for a reader, but at the same time also inform and educate and hopefully spur them to consider their own actions.
And that about actually wraps us up in terms of the questions that I had for you. Did you have anything you wanted to add? Where can people find the best part of us and more information about you? Where can they pick up a copy of this book?
Sure. So the best part of us is available pretty much wherever books are sold. Ordering them is the easiest way. There are some bookstores, particularly in the States and Canada, who have it in stocked, but probably online. I always encourage, I'm not sure in Scotland if you have Bookshop or IndieBound, but I'm always trying to encourage people to support independent bookstores if you have one there. Or those are two particular websites that support independent bookstores in particular. They can also go and order online through my website and learn more about the book and learn about a little bit about me and about some of the reviews and information that have been coming in about the book. And that would be at my website, which is Sally Cole-Misch.com.
It's been lovely talking to you, and thank you so much for taking time to be on the channel and talk to me. And I hope it's okay if anybody reaches out to me with questions for you, that I can send them along and get those connect people to you, so that you can continue to inspire lots of people to pick up the book and maybe write something themselves.
Of course, be happy to talk with anyone.
Okay, well, yes, as I said, I think I speak for everybody when we wish you the best of luck continuing to ride this debut wave, and we look forward to seeing what you do next. And thank you so much again, and I'll see you next week, Ecofictologists.